This is Stand Up for the Truth, addressing important issues and topics affecting Christians across the nation.
Good morning. Welcome to our frequency listeners at 90.1 in Green Bay, Fox Cities, 107.7 Oshkosh, and 104.1 FM in Sheboygan, and online at q90fm.com/listen. It is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. A brand new podcast today.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Mary Danielsen. It is April 23rd, and it's not Thursday, like I said last Friday. It's really Tuesday. So sometimes the days just run together, and I don't know what day it is, but we have a great guest today, researcher, speaker, and author Carl Teichrib. He is a researcher's researcher with a Bible in one hand and a desire to learn up close about something called transformational culture, and we are going to find out what that is. I always learn something new from Carl. I don't know of anyone else who has an ongoing ministry to and a genuine love for those who are seeking a type of cosmic, transcendental spiritual experience. And the numbers are growing. The church isn't ready, so we're going to talk about that. My scripture this morning is Psalm 115, 1-8. Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us, but to your name give glory, because of your mercy, because of your truth. Why should the Gentiles say, so where is their God? But our God is in heaven, and he does whatever he pleases. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they do not speak. Eyes they have, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. Noses they have, but they do not smell. They have hands, but they do not handle. Feet they have, but they do not walk, nor do they mutter through their throat. Those who make them are like them. So is everyone who trusts them. Wow. Let's pray. Oh, Lord, you are our help and our shield, an ever-present help in times of trouble. And we thank you that you keep all your promises to your church and to your covenant people. And we give you all the praise and glory for every good and perfect thing in our lives, that you've rescued us from the darkness and futility of our own understanding of this world and this life. And so we lift up those who are struggling today. Lord, you are faithful. We lift up those who are hurting, that you'd come alongside them, comforting and encouraging them. We lift up Carl today. Lord, we ask for a blessing on him and his loved ones, for open doors to continue to do what you've given him to do, and that you would use him to point to your Son and eternal life. Keep him safe and in good health. In Jesus' name, amen. Carl Teichrib is a Canadian-based researcher, writer, and lecturer, focusing on the paradigm shift sweeping the Western world, including the challenges and opportunities faced by Christians. Over the years, he's attended a range of internationally significant political, religious, and social events in his quest to understand the historical and contemporary forces of transformation. I call Carl a boots-on-the-ground kind of guy, and I love that. Carl, welcome back to Stand Up. It's a pleasure to have you back.
It's nice to be back. Thank you so much.
Well, now, you've been researching the topic of contemporary mysticism and interfaithism for a long time. How did you get your start? How did you end up here, and did you ever think it would take the shape that it has?
Oh my goodness, no. This is not something that, as a young person, I ever prepared or even thought about. But I've been engaged in this kind of work full time since 1997, and before that, going back into the early 1990s. And back in the early 1990s, I was being pressured to join the Masonic Lodge, and I was working for a community healthcare organization with a board of directors who were all members of the lodge or some other affiliated lodge, like the Eastern Star, the Royal Purples, the Elks, the Rebecca's, etc. And I wasn't interested. I had no desire to join the lodge, but there were things that were said, things that were spoken that caused me to sit up and take notice. And for the first few years, just in terms of my own personal interest, I desired to learn as much as I could about the Masonic Lodge. And probably for the first 3 or 4 years of just doing this as a hobby in the mid-1990s, that was really my primary interest. But then it just got broader and broader as I realized that the underlying worldview could be found in a variety of movements, organizations, campaigns, and agendas, from from sustainable development and earth politics, earth spirituality, to interfaithism, especially interfaithism, to just a variety of interlocking ideas and movements. And that would launch me into the politics of it. I went to UN meetings. I went to world government meetings. I've been to lots of interfaith events. And then on the cultural side, jumping in to see, all right, how does culture itself express these ideas of oneness and universalism and man's desire for global harmony? How does this all fit even at the cultural level? And that's taken me to a number of events over the years. So this is what I do full time. Of course, as always, you're always wearing multiple hats. You're an editor for other Christian authors. You do research for other groups. You lecture. You do a multitude of different things to make it all work.
Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate to be able to do this.
Well, it was definitely the Lord that He got your attention regarding Freemasonry, and you have a booklet on Freemasonry on Lighthouse Trails if people are interested in learning more about that. But now, Freemasonry basically is mysticism, right? It's sort of a gateway to mysticism and Gnosticism, that sort of thing. Is it basically mysticism?
Well, it's interesting you ask that. For the majority of lodge members, they'll say no because, they're just doing it because it's a time of networking, or you're engaging in something at a community level, but you don't necessarily see it. What's sometimes right in front of your face, but yes, there is this mystical element to it. There is a spiritual component to it. And what's interesting about the history of Freemasonry is that there is an internal, or has been an internal wrestling, saying, no, we're not about spirituality, we're not about mysticism. And then on the other side, you've got a slew of influential Masonic authors, not authors writing on the subject, but authors who are on the inside, men like Manly P. Hall and Albert Pike, and there's many of these are older authors, but there's newer authors as well who come out and say, of course we're spiritual. Of course we are bringing forward a mystical union. We're teaching an esoteric art. We're doing this at a level that's not secular. That there is a metaphysical reality to this, and there's always been this internal kind of clash between the average person who joins a lodge and just goes and looks to network and looks to do something for the community because they believe it's a community organization. And then this other side, this philosophical side, which goes, no, we're way, 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 way more, way more. And when you engage in the study of Masonic history and philosophy, at least this was, in terms of my own experience, it didn't take long. And you landed smack in the middle of theosophy, Rosicrucianism, esoteric and occult philosophy, the New Age, and you could see the commonalities all throughout it, especially the idea of religious universalism. And that's one of the key things with Freemasonry. It's religiously universal. Doesn't matter what God you believe, as long as you believe a God, you can join the lodge. And so you can be a Christian, or a Muslim, or a Hindu, or a Jew, and you unite around a common altar. And that itself, Mary, is the foundation of the interfaith way of thinking. Sure. That there is this universalism. Then there's also this quest for perfectibility and perfection, and even the degrees themselves speak to that. And so it's not you being perfected through the work of Jesus Christ alone, but it is now you being perfected through the work of the rituals and the ceremonies and the teachings.
Wow. And isn't that basically the definition of Gnosticism anyway? I've been studying that for quite a while now, over a year, and I'm finding out things that had never had occurred to me in light of that. But I want to ask you about a website for current research. Do you have a current website where people can download some of your research, or how are you doing with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So from 2007 to 2015, I edited and published a monthly research-based magazine called Forcing Change, which looked at the forces of philosophical, religious, cultural, political forces of change. And what I've done is I've archived all of that at forcingchange.org. There are other research reports on that site as well, articles. There's a membership side, plus a public side. The membership side you can access with your email. It's free, absolutely free, and all of the magazine's back issues are there. All the research report back issues are there, including some material that's more current, more fresh. But I tell people, just go in and put an icon on your desktop, put a folder on your desktop, and pull everything out and put it on your hard drive, and then you have it.
Oh, great. I'm sure it's loaded. Forcingchange.org. Thank you for that. And again, Lighthouse Trails Research has some of your research through booklets: Freemasonry, Labyrinth, Social Justice, Earth Day, which just concluded. Gratefully, I didn't hear a whole lot about that. And then a chapter in Lighthouse Trails' newest book, A New Narrative for a New World, entitled T is for Global Transformation. And I'm hoping that we have some time for this today, because the definitions in there are so helpful to get a big sweeping picture of what transformation means to this particular mystical crowd that we're seeing today. And it's a great way to understand your recent research. So we will hopefully get to that. But definitions, Carl, let's open up with definitions before we get to your latest trek to a transformational festival. This is fascinating. Just two definitions here, and one of them is interfaithism, and we discussed that briefly already. But I don't really understand it in light of the word ecumenism. How does interfaithism differ from ecumenism?
So ecumenism has traditionally been understood as the convergence or the unification within Christendom itself.
Okay.
So the Anglicans coming on board, let's say, with Roman Catholics for common good actions like social justice, common good is their language, that they're coming together for either social justice or community development or some other good cause. It can be anything from Baptists joining with Lutherans, joining with Methodists for some type of community development or some type of community outreach, in the sense where you break away your distinctions, or you don't acknowledge your distinctions, especially those that will tend to separate. But this is done within the realm of the Christian community. Definition of the Christian community. Mm-hmm. So ecumenicism is really nothing more than that coming together within the Christian community of the various branches. Okay. We're saying we're willing to set aside our differences as we work together for some justice cause or for some campaign or for some agenda, and we will move closer and closer together as we engage like that.
Okay.
Interfaithism takes it to a much more broad level. It's not just Christendom. Now it's Christendom with Islam, okay, with Hinduism, with Sikhism, with Wicca, with pagan groups. And so it now becomes a much broader idea, and it moves it into the realm of all religions have a valid pathway. All religions are moving to this mountaintop called God. All religions can work together, can unite. They may not necessarily harmonize. They won't separate out their distinctions. You can keep your diversity, but you now all can work together for some common good, for some global good. And within interfaithism, you see a lot of dovetailing within the international community. In fact, you could look at this as and they do. They look at themselves as being the moral voice for the international community. They are the ethical voice, the global statesman. Mm-hmm. And that's something, Mary, that's really fascinating. The more I've spent time going to interfaith events, how the world's religious leaders, be they Christian or Sikh or Jainism or Hindu or Muslim, how at these interfaith events they will recognize each other and themselves as being the true global statesmen. Politicians come and go. In fact, if you are, in the election cycle, as so many nations, including your own, is this year, yes, politicians come and politicians go. It's a revolving door. Yeah. Yet, with that in mind, the religious leaders recognize we don't operate on that same system. We may be in that position for decades. So we have as religious leaders working working within the interfaith movement, we have the potential to have a much stronger, more powerful impact across the board.
Very interesting. Now, underlying this interfaithism is this transcendent, transformational mindset, and also the belief that, tell me if this is right or not, God and man and nature are basically all one.
Exactly.
Okay.
You would call that oneism, and Dr. Peter Jones of Truth Exchange, he's a Christian author, a Christian philosopher. He's done a really good job of breaking that down, demonstrating that the dominant worldview, we would call it as being oneism or oneness, and that is God, man, and nature all share the same essence. And that goes across the board from the Wiccan and the pagan community right through to Eastern religions and Eastern philosophies, and it's already landed in our own laps, even within the world of Christendom, especially as all of a sudden we see progressive Christianity really taking, really moving forward quickly. They too will gravitate towards that idea of everything is one. We're all part of this oneness. We're pursuing a oneness. The biblical view, obviously, though, is different. The biblical view is God is distinct. He is holy. That means he is set apart. He is positioned differently. He is exalted. He is not the same as creation. He's not the same as man. He's not the same as nature. He is separate. He is the creator. Everything else is the creation. And so it's really twoism, not dualism. Twoism, God, and then everything else. That's the biblical position, which is fundamentally different, obviously, than what the world is saying. So we're living now, and this is something I've been saying for a long time, we're living now in what is essentially a Romans 1 world. And we realize as Christians, we're now, especially if you recognize that difference between oneism and twoism, we're now the counterculture. We're the ones who are saying a different message. Yeah. We're the ones presenting a different view than what the world is holding.
Yeah. And the whole idea is the outcome, of course, if we all come together and we're all one, we can save the planet and prevent wars. Carl, there is no evidence whatsoever that humans are capable of that. What are they thinking?
No, but that's a good point. It really ends up kind of positioning itself as we are the global saviors. We're the ones who save the planet. And what's interesting, Mary, is when you're going through even their own headlines, their own documentation. Great example is the headlines you see coming out of the World Economic Forum, because that's the political side of this worldview. And they're saying, things like, how can the World Economic Forum save the planet? Or the United Nations Conference on the Climate Change, COP28 or COP27, how can it change? How can it save the planet? Young people are trying to save the planet. Who made us savior? Yeah. Who gave us that mantle?
Yeah. Ooh, good point. Wow. And no human has ever...
You see this all, right. No human has ever done this. And we when you see this for what it is, which is an alternative salvation message, that language strikes you. You see it all the time. You, especially younger people, often it's aimed at young people. We just had Earth Day yesterday, and that's exactly what this is about. You are charged with saving the planet. Hold on. I didn't wake up one day to have that mantle of Messiah placed on my head.
Sign up for that, yeah.
Exactly. What a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah. And no human has ever discovered their divinity or ascended to divinity. And yet this is the spirit of Antichrist. There will be such strong delusion. You and I can stand on the outside and go, this is insane. But such strong delusion that people will believe the lie. And back in the garden, Satan said to Eve, well, he doesn't want you to know this because then you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And so humans ever since then have felt that God's holding out on them and they can be God. But Jesus is exclusive. No one comes to the Father except by me. And yet he's inclusive, whosoever will. So that is a very interesting dynamic going on there.
Isn't that the truth? That is an interesting dynamic. It is so different than what the world is saying.
Yeah.
So the world of the New Age movement and mysticism, it says that, and Eastern spirituality, it says that we can become divine-like, or we can ascend to that position. We can become as gods. But Christianity is like, no, you can't. God is different. He is unique. Rather, God descends down to man's domain in the flesh through Jesus Christ. Very different. It's a reversal of what the world is saying in every respect. And when you see this juxtaposition, it becomes very stark. You realize just how different and how beautiful and how wonderful the gospel message really is. That God himself would come to earth, that God himself would feel our pain, that he would taste what it is like to be a human, and he would suffer and he would die. However, in fact, not just any death, he's executed. However, because he is literally the author of life, he has the power even to defeat the grave. A very, very different story, a very different reality than what we see given to us by any other faith or religion, because the rest of them are essentially saying man does this. Christianity says, no, God does this.
Wow. Wow, thank you for bringing that out, and the total difference between the God of this age and the whole world being under the sway of that God. 1 John 5:19. I want to talk about transformational culture, because now that we've laid this foundation of the truth, what is transformational culture? It is growing by leaps and bounds, and there are things called transformational festivals. A lot of people have heard of Burning Man and maybe some other ones. Is it just another New Age cultural expression? I tend to not think that's true because, like I said, these are growing exponentially. What is transformational culture? What are these festivals about?
Well, broadly speaking, it is a cultural movement. So there's art involved. There's festivals are by far the most important expressions of this. But the festivals themselves are nothing more than a container where all of this can take place and then mix together in such a way that it becomes an overpowering, very psychological, very, very profound experience. And that's how they're designed. And so art and movement, sound, all of this is combined to create these events. And the best way of actually examining it, and you're right, is through the lens of what transformational festivals are all about. Burning Man being the mothership, the one that's the most well known, but there are others. Many, many, many others. In fact, I was just at one a couple of weeks ago in Texas. It was called the Texas Eclipse Festival, and this is a sub-movement of transformational culture. Now, just to back up just a bit, transformational culture is this, like I said, a container. It's a space where you'll have music, you'll have art, you have workshops, you have ecstatic encounters, there'll be ceremonies, there'll be sacred spaces. There'll be places where you can go and do yoga or Reiki energy healing. It's a number of things, all transpiring at the same time. And you're in this community, and you're all feeling this together. And so there's this sense of you're part of something bigger than yourself, that you're part of something with purpose, with meaning. It's not just simply a concert. It's not an event where you're going as just an observer. There's a sense that, yes, you are a participant. You're part of a bigger picture, an unfolding story. And so a lot of people think, oh, this is just for young people. No. Yes, there's a lot of young people, but no, this is actually, you see more young professionals, people in their 40s, 50s. I talk to senior citizens when I'm there. It's an eclectic demographic, because it's a demographic that's, it's a movement that transcends your demographic structures.
Sure.
It's this movement that says you can be part of something bigger than yourself. Wow. And so there's a spiritual component, there's a secular component. My goodness, when I'm at Burning Man, and I've been there, I have my ticket again for this year. When I go there, what strikes me, especially it hit me last year, this is a complete mashup or mix between the sacred and the secular, between what would be considered the mystical and the material. And it really comes together in one spot. So at the Texas Eclipse Festival, we had ceremonies to venerate the sun, because it was about this cosmic alignment. The sun, the moon, you standing on the earth in a very specific place, and now you could spiritually be aligned with this cosmic phenomena. And at the same time, we had workshops on blockchain, brain-computer interfacing, neuroscience, space, rocketry. We had SpaceX out there. We had Elon Musk's people. We had leading neuroscientists giving us discussions and leading us in panels and workshops. We had some of the most important figures in the realm of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And so there's a highly technical side married in with this ecstatic experience, married into this pagan cosmology. And the language that's being used is this is an ancient future worldview. Ancient in the sense of we are pulling from that pagan mystical past, from those mythologies, Mother Earth, Gaia, our cosmic connection. And we are marrying this, we're blending this in with technology, futurism, new worlds that we're going to be creating through our digital realities, the metaverse, on and on. So it brings the two together. Wow. It marries the spiritual and the material.
Wow. It really is a catch-all of everything mystical, and an immersive experience is my understanding, and people really get into it. I did some research on the numbers. There are 800 transformational festivals around the world per year and 32 million attendees. That's a lot. It has grown a lot. I remember when Brian McLaren and Jim Wallace had something called the Wild Goose Festival. I don't know if they still do that. And I thought, boy, Wild Goose Festival, that is the most appropriate name, because they still haven't found what they're looking for, apparently, to quote U2. What a perfect name for that, chasing a wild goose. So,
I know.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
I love how you wove those two together. Yes, they still haven't found what they're looking for.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. I never thought I'd see this. And you mentioned senior citizens. You know what that translates to me is just hippies, old hippies, which gives you a different kind of mental picture than senior citizens. But
right. But here's the thing: I don't see hippies out there. Not even old hippies. Now they may be living it for the weekend, for that event.
Okay.
But then you talk to them, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm the CEO of a multinational corporation. I'm retired, but I've made, my millions on the stock market."
Right.
Like, okay, yeah. You're not living in a beat up VW van from the 70s.
Right. True. Hippies at heart, maybe.
Flowing in on your private jet.
Hippies at heart, who said don't trust anyone over 30, right? Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, the culture is really, really bizarre. We're living in strange times, plus the technology, plus the pagan worldview. I guess that was inevitable, but I find that fascinating. So when
it is fascinating because this is one of those touch points that all of a sudden brings it home. It's so easy to look at these movements, and I was just speaking at a conference this last weekend in Saskatoon, Canada, and having conversations with people, and there was a sense with some of them that, you're talking about something far, far away. You're talking about something, Burning Man, that's Nevada. Or you're talking about, these other events that are happening in other parts of the world. And I'm like, but you're all using Google. You're all using the technologies that are birthed directly out of the people who attend these events, and more importantly, how these events themselves, Burning Man in particular, has shaped the very products that you're using. You'll never go to Burning Man, but you're all digital burners already.
Sure. We are at that time, Carl. We're going to take a break here. I'm speaking with Carl Teichrib today on this Tuesday, forcingchange.org. We are talking about transformational culture that is sweeping the world. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about some of the other festivals that are out there. But you can, again, go to forcingchange.org and you can read Carl's research. And we are going to be back shortly with more with Carl Teichrib.
Join the Q staff live in studio during our semi-annual Q Drive right here on the Q90 FM radio YouTube channel. Q Drive is when we stop our regular programming to raise money to continue spreading the gospel to people around the globe. Fun interviews, fellowship, and a deep dive into the gospel is all on tap for Q Drive Live. You can donate via Super Chat to get involved in the conversation, or go to q90fm.com/pledge. Q90FM presents the Police Lights of Christmas, helping over 70 police departments across Wisconsin.
Each department is going to leave this night with a box full of thousands of dollars worth of gift cards.
Visit lightsofchristmas.us. Police Lights of Christmas, a ministry of Q90FM.
Feedback, questions, and topic suggestions are always appreciated. Email us at comments@standupforthetruth.com.
Welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth. My name is Mary Danielsen, and we are speaking with Carl Teichrib, forcingchange.org. And we're talking about the transformational culture. It's bigger than you might think. Even if you don't hear about it, it is still out there. There are 800 transformational festivals per year. It's probably going to grow from there. When I studied it several years ago, there weren't anywhere close to that. But some of them, there's the Envision Festival, Boom Festival, that's in Portugal. Lightning in a Bottle, that's in the USA. Features artists, various speakers, health enthusiasts. It's just such a mixed bag. It's very eclectic. Fusion Festival in Germany, fusion of music, art, and activism. There can be a music festival with transformational elements to it. Noisily, United Kingdom in July. Shambhala, one of them has to be named Shambhala Music Festival. That's in Canada. It says attendees can explore their inner worlds while respecting the planet. Frequency Festival in Australia. And, so many more. Burning Man, Lucidity. Carl, where do you start studying these things? And you said you're going to Burning Man this year.
Yes, and I have been going for, this will be my 5th time, and I've also been attending regional burns and other affiliated events. And, Burning Man in many respects is considered to be a mothership for this movement. But, I mean, as you just mentioned, there are others. Boom in Portugal is massive. And Europe really has gravitated to these festivals. And it's not just Europe, it's not just North America, it's a worldwide phenomena. Costa Rica has them, Brazil has them. In fact, there's a very large organized festival movement that has all of these elements within it coming out of Brazil. It has had a worldwide impact, landing all the way into Israel. Israel has these events, and so when Hamas came and shot up that music festival, and that's how it was dubbed, a music festival, the news media got it wrong. It wasn't a music festival. Music is a part of it, but the Nova Festival was a transformational festival birthed out of a larger festival movement out of Brazil. It had all the elements of being a transformational festival. Yes, music is part of this. It's kind of the lightning rod. But there's wellness and spirituality. That's why you saw some of the imagery you saw, you would recognize that there's also a Buddha statue at this event, the Nova Festival in Israel. There'll be workshops, there'll be energy healings, there'll be yoga. It's more than just simply going to a concert. It's a full-orbed participatory experience. And so when I saw on the news that this so-called music festival had been shot up by Hamas, I'm looking at the imagery, and I recognized immediately, Nova Festival, that's attached to the big movement out of Brazil, out of their own transformational festival culture. And I'm like, I know these people. I know these people. And I spend time with these people.
Yeah, wow. And I knew that Israel had transformational festivals. I did not connect that dot. There was nothing in anything I read or saw that connected that dot. But wow,
right? Unless you've spent time in that space, you all of a sudden it clicks and you're going, "Yep, I know exactly what this was about."
Well, I've taken several shots at the eclipse mania. From the perspective of Christians making predictions, but really. That kind of drove me crazy. But the bigger picture, I think, is that wider pagan notion that an event like this can be used to further the idea that we can be transformed by it. And they are tech unveilings. Is that my understanding? And business launches, so people take advantage of this for a built-in audience to unveil their latest technologies?
Right, absolutely. We saw that at the Eclipse Festival, and like yourself, it drove me crazy watching the memes and hearing the chatter and seeing the messaging going through on social media about the eclipse, the doom, the gloom, the fear, unbelievable amounts of fear and bizarre speculations. And I'm like, it's just an alignment.
Yeah.
It's mathematically understood. We know where they happen, when they happen. It's an amazing phenomenon. Don't get me wrong. In fact, standing underneath it is it's a jaw-dropping experience. This is my second one. The first one I saw back in '79 as a younger person. But at the same time, it is a natural phenomenon. Yeah. It's a glorious thing to see, but it's a natural phenomenon. And all of a sudden, all of the things we've attached to it. So the secular, I can't say the secular side because it's not. The spiritually mystical side attached a meaning to it, saying, hey, this is our time to align cosmically and have the spiritual experience. And then at the same time, and I think this was the real, for me, the real event of the Texas or of the Eclipse the Eclipse movement that happened, not the Texas Eclipse Festival, because I was there. I mean, I thought that was going to be the thing about this eclipse, that the Christian community would all of a sudden wake up and say, and see that, wow, there's stuff like this happening. No. The real event was the fear that it induced within the Christian community, that we roused each other up to such levels of fear and speculation. And I'm like, stop. Just stop.
Yeah, I was real disappointed. Same with the blood moons back in 2015 or 17, whenever that was. I was so disappointed in that kind of, let's sell a book, but we'll never apologize that we were wrong, but we sold you a book. So I'm very cynical about that sort of thing, and I know it comes through from time to time. But, I think about Bible prophecy, too, and I think about AI and tech at these festivals, and that hive mind outcome I think that they're after, because AI and Revelation 13, the Antichrist, an image that speaks. I mean, these festivals are just the front door to that whole notion and that deception that's coming down the pike. Do you find that technology is perpetuates that hive mind outcome, that we are all going to be one and think the same and wow?
Oh, there's no question. In fact, at the Texas Eclipse Festival, because we had a lot of discussion about blockchain, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence plays a huge role in that. We had a workshop. In fact, I think it was the first workshop I attended, which was on April the 5th, Friday, April the 5th, was on, in fact, it was titled, I have the notes right here in front of me now, Fear and Hope in the Age of AI. And so the discussion was, we are looking to develop a collective AI reality. AI can become a weapon of mass destruction unless we grab hold of this and steer it ethically. But then how do we do this? How do we do this as a tech culture? How do we bring ethics into artificial intelligence, knowing that artificial intelligence really is built on humanity's input first and foremost. It just doesn't arise on its own. And so there was quite a bit of discussion about, okay, we've already experienced the ethics and the worldview of the West, the Christian West. Now we have to learn from, and I have this in my notes, Taoism, Sufism, Hinduism. We have to take those ethics and integrate that into the mechanism of artificial intelligence. And so that's some of the conversations that are unfolding when you're at these kinds of events, and specifically at the Texas Eclipse Festival, how AI is becoming a type of global hive mind. But AI still has to come through our human input. Now, what are those inputs? What are the ethics? What is the worldview we want to inscribe into the technology? And so there's a lot of discussion about how this is we are collectively training AI. They also were talking about the dangers of AI as a weapon of mass destruction, especially as non-state actors, terrorist groups, can use now advanced 3D printing. Can 3D print, let's say, the parts to assemble a drone, can put a payload on it, and you can now run literally a drone force, weaponized drone force, run it through an AI system as it targets, let's say, a specific place or people group or city.
Wow.
So those are some of the conversations that take place, and I mean, this is heady stuff, big stuff.
It is
really important. But I mean, they're building a world future. That's the point of so much of this.
Sure.
So this year, when I went to the Texas Eclipse Festival, I was really fortunate. I had a friend join me. My friend is a very analytical person. He has worked with global missions. He's a very sharp individual, and he wanted to come with. He's from Texas. He heard I was traveling down, and he wanted to be a part of this event. He wanted to see it with his own eyes. He tried to get, first of all, his own churches, his church, and then the churches around where this part of Texas, around that community, have them interacting. And I suggested a few different things churches could do, and he brought that forward, and it was like, no, this is a little bit too weird, a little bit too scary. That's how we operate, right?
Yeah, right.
And so he said, well, yeah, to our shame. And so he's like, can I join you? I said, sure. And okay, he's done cross-cultural work around the world. The first day, Friday, in the evening, he's looking at me going, I am completely blown away. Wow. This is overwhelming. This is absolutely overwhelming. By Saturday, he's working analytically through it. What are the implications? And he's going, oh my, these are world changers. Mm-hmm. These are people who are literally writing the script for what the future will be looking like. Whether it turns out exactly that way or not is that actually doesn't matter.
Right.
This is what is being projected. This is what we're seeing them working towards this very specific goal with worldviews that are opposed to the biblical worldview, that operate as almost like the operating system, the ethical operating system. By Sunday, he was really wrestling with, all right, how now do we warn the churches? How do we not just warn, how do we equip? More importantly, how do we equip the churches? Mm-hmm. As he rightfully saw this as a tsunami, and it is a tsunami, and you don't even see the wave, but it's there. And it's already risen up out of the water, and it's already crashing into us. But if you're not directly seeing it, you don't know how close already it is to your backyard. And so he was like, we've got to educate churches. We have to educate the Christian community. We have to educate them, first of all, so they have a grounding, a biblical grounding in a Christian worldview, and then be able to juxtapose, show them the seriousness of what is transpiring, and then be able to respond, not react. We're really, really good at reacting. Reacting is sitting behind the keyboard and slamming out those angry words because that's all you've got to work with.
That's right. Wow.
Whereas responding is to sit and work it through with biblical reason, with grace, with truth, with understanding. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we've got a long road ahead of us if we want to be able to interact with this culture in a way that is that has some impact, some meaning.
Yeah, some meaning.
First of all, we have to acknowledge that. First of all, we have to acknowledge it's actually happening.
Yeah, correct.
It's actually happening right in our backyards.
Well, and we know, and for prophecy students, it's the best thing would be to have a worldview, that Christian worldview, plus being a student of prophecy, because we know how it ends, and the world is going to come together as one. People have been writing about that for a long time. We're going to have a global government. We can see that take shape. We're going to have a global economy. It's already here. Now the global spirituality, which I think a lot of believers were thinking, I don't really know what form that's going to take. Well, this could be a Kodak moment for that. You went to some workshops.
Yes.
I want to ask you about any personal encounters you had with attendees, but you went to some workshops, neuroscience, the brain-computer interface, that kind of thing. Visionary art, that's the one I want to ask you. Is that the official art of the Transformational Festival? What is visionary art?
So visionary art is a sub-movement within the artistic community all on its own. And visionary art can take the form of paintings, sculptures, large interactive art pieces. But visionary art is artwork that specifically is meant to express in the outer world the inner transformation, mystical transformation, the inner divine realization, the inner spiritual experience, the inner psychedelic experience, and now translate that externally into your artwork so that your artwork is speaking directly to this worldview transformation, the artwork itself. And there's a multitude of forms that this can take, but it's art with a very specific meaning. It has a purpose. It has a world view that it is bringing forward, and it's doing it in a way that sometimes is very open and very radically in your face. Other times it's more subtle, but it's this outward expression of the inner reality that you've now experienced. So I've got some pictures. One of the pictures I took was of an artist drawing just a lion, just a lion's face with a lion's mane. It was a beautiful picture. But of course, the lion has to have, because this is the transformation of the person's inner lion, the lion has the third eye. And so the third eye is now being opened. The lion is now spiritually awake and aware. So visionary art is a modality or a technique. It is a system of, through artwork, conveying a bigger idea. The people who are really front and center of this is Alex and Allison Gray, a husband and wife team. I've been around them on different occasions. They're kind of like the forerunners of this movement in many, many respects. And they've got a place in New York. They've got a kind of a cosmic temple that they've built, and for 21 years they conduct full moon ceremonies. They've established their own little community. And they believe that visionary art breaks into and recovers this idea of creating a sacred space. Okay. And they give it all of the trappings of a religion, in the sense that the art becomes a type of religious experience. In fact, Alex Gray, and I've heard this out of his own lips a few times now, is that visionary art is the universal religion, because it doesn't matter if you're Hindu, Christian mystic, I'm going to put it that way, because it's not Christian in the sense that you, I, or your audience would understand it, but it's this mystical sense. If you're a Hindu, if you're a Sufi, a Muslim mystic, you will all be able to express yourself through this mode of visionary art, and you'll all recognize each other's inner experience. So it's a fascinating field of study, and this is one of the things I think the Christian community we've done ourselves a disservice by in a way pushing away from the world of art for so long. And I get it, there's roots back to the Reformation when it comes to our reaction with art, with classical art, with high art. And this is something that I've noticed as well, that the mystical side, they gravitate to art very quickly, because it is that outward expression. They're seeing some way of conveying their worldview.
I want to ask you then, sort of as a follow-up here then, these are people who come to this festival and to varying degrees are seeking to transcend and to be gods themselves. And where do you start with people who aren't even really, they're coming to this festival, they're not necessarily thinking about their own mortality, they're not thinking about being on the wrong path, and it's likely the last thing they want to hear when they're there is that they are dead in their sins. But how do you open up that conversation? Did you have, I'm sure it's just, a little bit at a time, but did you have any compelling encounters with, I call these people seekers to the nth degree. That's the impression that I get. So what happened? Were you able to open up with anyone? Did anyone open up to you?
Oh, yes. We didn't have a lot of big conversations. We had quite a few smaller conversations, planting smaller seeds. My friend and I, as we were walking to the festival site one morning, we ended up having a young lady walk beside us. We had this huge conversation. She was in a same-sex relationship. Something had gone sour the night before. She was really depressed, and we ended up having this big conversation just about her own life. And then, as we continued in our walk, because it was about a mile-long walk, then the conversation shifts to what other events have you been to, because that's the common thing in transformational festivals. Hey, what have you been to? Have you been to Boom? Have you been to Burning Man? Yeah. that type of thing. And so that opened up the door to talk about Burning Man and what my little group does at Burning Man. And I say, we have a camp. It's a camp of the unknown God. And that itself all of a sudden opens up a conversation piece. And other events that I've attended and been a part of that we can now have a Christian voice in becomes our conversation leverage point. Yeah. We can now begin to have a conversation like that. And it was small. I ended up giving her a cross. I've got a friend who he does blacksmithing as a hobby, and he makes these beautiful hand-wrought crosses. And I gave her a cross. I explained to her she needs to trust Jesus. And it was a short conversation. And then she broke away, and away she went. But she was like, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. Some other fellow came alongside and said to us, I lost my phone. I lost my cell phone. Can you guys send me good vibes or prayers? And I just stopped him and I said, we're Christians. We can pray right now. And so we prayed. We prayed that he would find his phone, but more importantly, that he would find Jesus Christ, who is the answer he needs. And we ended up having a short conversation. And I mean, that's one of the things about these kinds of events. You can have big conversations. More often than not, however, it's like everybody's rushing. You're all going somewhere. And so you have these little ricochet, bounce-off conversations, planting little seeds.
Sure.
At the same time, my goodness, at Burning Man last year, I sat on a 4-story art structure, had a conversation with a Jewish Mexican who now works for Silicon Valley with Microsoft. And we ended up having this huge conversation where we dive deep into Psalm 51 as our model for repentance, David's sin, the fact that David couldn't redeem himself, he couldn't save himself, neither can we. We need Jesus Christ. We have this problem of sin. It was an amazing conversation, absolutely amazing, and it was deep, and it went on for quite some time, and he wanted to talk. And here's one of the things: there's no secret. A big part of it is you listening. You don't have to talk a lot. Yeah. You're going to listen. You're going to hear them because they're people, and they're going through a human experience. We all are. So you can empathize. Yeah. You can understand, and have the compassion as you listen to them, and you very quickly realize, well, these are just people.
Right.
These are just hurting people. Yeah. And then you can begin to engage in a conversation, and you look for some natural way of bridging that. And I'm fortunate because, I mean, for us, going to Burning Man with our camp and then doing other events that have, some parallels, I'm able to leverage that. And all of a sudden they're going, oh, what? You're a Christian group? Yeah. And then you can have those conversations. Right. But they're willing to listen to you because you've already listened to them. Yeah. And you've done so without condemning. Yeah. And that's the thing that sometimes, Mary, we forget that, and this is John 3:17, that Christ didn't come into the world to condemn the world because, well, we're condemned already, but rather came to give us salvation.
And we are all together in that war for souls. Everyone is on a level playing field that way, and we just want to rescue people. We just have a minute or so left. Carl, are you in touch with people over time when it comes to these festivals? Does anyone get back with you, and are you able to communicate with others that you've shared with?
Oh, yes. Yes, we still have some conversations going on, friendships and conversations. And all we can do, Mary, is put the seeds out there. Yeah. We all want the harvest. We all want that harvest. I'm from a farm background. I know it's what you want. You want at the end of the summer to get in the field and combine the field. But that doesn't happen unless you plant. And sometimes the seeds are small and sometimes they're big. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we are just grateful that you have that ministry to this really incredible movement in these last times. And we didn't get a chance to look at the book, but A New Narrative for a New World, it really goes hand in hand with this program because there is a chapter from Carl on terminology. It's a book of glossaries about social justice, signs and wonders, but there's that whole chapter. I think there are about 100 easily vocabulary terms about global transformation that give you a great picture of what this is in case if people just want to pray for these people who attend these festivals and or plant a seed or whatever. And so we have had Carl Teichrib on today talking about transformational festivals. Carl, I just want to thank you so much for your time and all the research that you do about these things so that we can all share these things with other people. So thank you so much. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I'd love to do that. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks. Carl's book, Game of Gods, also a new narrative for a new world, forcingchange.org. So I hope you will take advantage of that. He is a researcher's researcher, and we appreciate everything that he's done. Wednesday, John Haller, a replay. Thursday, headlines. Friday, Pastor Chris Quintana, and we will talk about many, many things. So I hope that you will join us the rest of the week for these podcasts. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Have a great day on purpose.